just going to do introductions to just get us started. We have Steve Kupryk, Marine Veteran Infantry, 2 tours to Afghanistan, now wrestles in Impact Wrestling under the name of Steve Maclin. Steve, say hey. And which years did you do over there?
I served between 2007 and 2011. I was in Afghanistan from May to November of 2009, and then from January to August of 2011 in Marja. Both were Helmand Province. 2009 was Operation Ganjari with 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, and so was Marja in 2011. And the contrast between both deployments, just completely night and day of ROEs and then IEDs and just tactical procedures and everything.
Gotcha. Very good. Well, welcome. Amanda Huffman, Air Force veteran. She was an engineer in Afghanistan. Is that right? Engineer?
Yep. Civil engineer. Gotcha.
And you were on a provincial reconstruction team. You're now a mom, an author, and a podcast host of Women of the Military podcast. Amanda, again, say hey. Let everybody know when and where you were over there and what provinces you mainly worked in.
So I was in Afghanistan in 2010 from February to October, and we were in Kapisa province primarily. We would go into like Bagram and down to Kabul when we were going around to get to different places, but we were primarily in Kapisa, and I was attached to an Army infantry unit in the PRT, and so it was an interesting experience.
Outstanding. Well, welcome. Dan Sharp, Marine Veteran Infantry, 5 deployments in 12 years. How many were in Afghanistan?
Just the one. I joined because of 9/11, and then they sent me everywhere else in the world besides Afghanistan. And then by the time that I got there, bin Laden was already taken care of. So I just did my best to stay out of the way.
There you go. Now as the CEO of Pop Smoke Media, which I got to say, man, has changed quite a lot since the last time we talked. It's definitely evolved.
Yeah, we decided that if we're going to be in the rooms where important conversations are being held, we might want to clean up our act a little bit. And just as we continue to get older, we have a little bit of reflection where we have a responsibility to leave the military a little bit better than we found it. So that way our sons and daughters don't inherit a lot of the same problems that we did.
Yeah. Well, it's been really good to see that evolution, man. It's been good to watch you on that. Same question, years and where were you mainly in Afghanistan?
2011, I was in Sangin, Afghanistan in the Iraq and Helmand Province with 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines. And yeah, it was I'd like to say it was a good time, but it wasn't, if I'm being honest.
Gotcha. Very good. Very good. Now, the 3 of you, for a more comprehensive story about yourselves, your individual episodes are in our archives. Anybody can check them out. Our last panelist, though, welcome to the crew, man. Zach Bell. Is it Zach or Zachary?
It's both.
Both. Whatever I want.
Yeah, Zachary's what the government gave me. Zach is what you can call me.
Marine veteran, 2 tours to Afghanistan, has amassed a pretty large following with Veteran with a Sign. If you see him with the backwards hat on, all you got to imagine put the shades, put the cardboard on, and you kind of know where that's coming from. I saw that you have a website now, veteranwithassign.com, with the message, be the change you want to be.
Let's see.
We'll be definitely speaking one-on-one soon, man. Again, what years were you out there and where were we at?
So I was in the Marines. I was an infantry rifleman. I served with 1st Battalion, 6th Marines in Garmser of 2008 on the 24th MEU, and did the invasion into Marja in 2010. And
gotcha.
South Helmand Province.
Gotcha. Well, welcome. So, first of all, I appreciate y'all coming to talk here about Afghanistan. Everyone wanted to talk about when it was happening. A lot of ideas, thoughts, emotions. Again, those all tend to be very emotional, right? When it happened. That's not the conversation I wanted to have here on Borne the Battle. I wanted to talk about it maybe a month after, with those I trusted, who could come together and hopefully help others that, and talk about how you processed it. Share a nugget, if you will, on how, hey, this is what helped me, sort of thing. Put what you felt to good use. So I appreciate all you for coming on. Now I love getting the years out there, because many of us deployed in areas at the same time, or we're on the same ground, shopped at the same PX. Something usually ties us all together, right? When we serve in a similar place. Did any of you guys have that when you guys were listening to each other?
Yeah, I was hearing Zach talk about Hellman, and kind of brought back some memories. Perhaps we used the same outhouse on a fob. That would have been Providence.
Yeah.
One can only hope. Yeah, no. I think the majority of veterans that have been impacted greatly, I would say that probably have the highest level of impact. Like, it's all generational, right? At that time during the war, Afghanistan was the most kinetic and maintained during that presidency time frame, the most kinetic fighting it ever was. It was the big final push to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I remember they basically threatened us with going to Iraq at that time on both tours, and they're like, "You're going to Iraq," and I was like, "Yes." I literally was like, "Yes," because it was a different environment than as opposed to being in that area of the country. I mean, that part of the country at that time. It was the last bastion, which actually was a place called Camp Bastion, the last bastion of the Taliban.
I was about to say, no pun intended, right?
Yeah, no, it's what I do. But no, it's wild to see. I mean, Afghanistan as a whole is just a place that American and Western society as a whole just doesn't really comprehend, because it's tribal, which everybody thinks they understand. That they don't. They just don't. Like, I remember we showed them their flag when Hamid Karzai came in town, and he was like, he's pressing the flesh, doing that thing, and we showed them their flag, we showed them the president, and they're like, "Who's that guy?" And I was like, "That's your president." They're like, "Okay, what's that?" And I was like, "He's in charge of all of you." And he's like, "Nah, man, I got the elder. Like, that he's in charge." And I was like, "Well, he's in charge of that guy." And he's like, "Whatever, dude. What's that big thing?" And I was like, "That's your flag." "Whatever, man. I'm out." Like, that was just basically it. And I think about that a lot when people try and say things like, "I don't understand why they don't want a better quality of life." I mean, it's kind of hard to argue that they don't have a better quality of life in some aspects, but that's just my perspective on the matter.
I gotcha. All right. Show of hands. How many process these emotions? And I'll say it. I'll say how many hands were raised on this during all this. How many of you have you processed anger? All 4. Hate. 2. Sadness. 4. Wanting to do more. 4. Have had someone to really talk about it with. 4. That's good. Now, all right, for each one of you, we can run down in the same order as we did the intros. How did you learn about Afghanistan was going to fall the way that it did?
I could have told you from when we were there. Once you kind of got told everybody was pulling out of Afghanistan, we were there in 2009 and 2011, the way the A&A were, and they really didn't care. And back to the whole tribal that Zach was talking about, it's very much that. Like, the ISKI were the ones that cared more for their entire population or for that area, like the neighborhood watch. The Afghan army was just, I don't know, you couldn't tell who was who half the time. You knew they had the uniform on, but you knew a lot of them were probably Taliban. One day they'd be there, the next they're gone.
Yeah.
In a sense of a show. Just didn't trust them, but you had to work with them, try to train them the way you could, because that was what we were told to do. But yeah, as soon as everything kind of was happening with the way things were pulled out, and obviously with the way the media is these days, you don't know what to listen to or what to trust.
Yeah.
But I talked to friends that are there. One of my buddies is on a MEU right now that was supposed to be slated to go to Kabul and then got put towards Okinawa. But from what I'm getting told from him, and obviously OPSEC in that certain aspect, but I saw that coming when we were there in 2009.
Gotcha. Amanda, how'd you learn about how everything went down? Was going to go down?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I knew when we were deployed in 2010, and when I hadn't really thought about it for a long time, but I had a conversation with one of our interpreters about Afghanistan, and he was like, I'm here to get out. I do not want to stay in Afghanistan. There's no future for Afghanistan. And this was an Afghan who was intelligent, smart, and wanted a better life for himself. And he saw the only way forward to get out and to get his citizenship through being an interpreter for the Americans. And so that conversation stuck with me through the whole rest of the deployment. And then when we were leaving and I found out we were leaving, I couldn't stop thinking about what he said and how that is, I mean, it played out exactly how he said it would. And that was in 2010.
Wow. So this is, again, this conversation you had 10 years ago, saw it coming. And then when the news started coming, you're like, oh, this is what he meant.
Yes, for sure.
Got you. Dan.
So I have been making memes saying that the Afghan army was woefully ill-prepared to deal with their assigned duties for years now. So it was one of those very bittersweet moments where I was like, aha, I told you so, but at what cost, Yeah. And, that's not to detract from some of the Afghan soldiers and police that we worked with, because, as with all things, like Steve was saying, like you have some people that would show up, get a paycheck, and as soon as they have that cash in their hand, they bounce. And heat purifies. So I feel that where you really started to see some resolve in the Afghan units was when they would take casualties, and it would be night and day. I was embedded with a platoon of Afghans. There was like 8 of us and close to 50 of them. And when they had their first mass casualty experience, it's like a flip switched. And the ones that didn't want to be there left, and the ones that wanted to be there stayed. And unfortunately, it shouldn't have to come to that. But we saw all too often with the blue on blue instances and the desertion instances, and just the fact that we send our best and our brightest over there. Not that I'm saying that I am the best and brightest, but I was among giants who went over there and trained the forces for years. And so, I was kind of doing my social media tap dance, like trying to, point a spotlight and like, hey, everybody look over there. Like they say some crazy stuff's happening. And then it was just almost like within a 3-day period where it went from, they're telling us like, oh yeah, they're well funded. Their army is 4 times bigger. They have air support. And then 3 days later, it was the capital has fallen. And so that was a very surreal period for me in those 3 days where, you want to trust information that you're given from reputable sources. And when everyone in their and their undersecretary tells you that, hey, your efforts were not in vain. We've spent the last, 10, 20 years plus near $100 billion of taxpayer money propping up this army so that way it can stand on its own, much like things we're doing in Iraq, where it was a little hairy there for a while, but for the most part, Iraq is hopefully, still pulling through. But then within that 3-day period where, everything just kind of failed, I took a step back from kind of all my duties, and I just felt just a little lost. Yeah. I didn't want to make it about me and, post a whole bunch of things of my reflections right away, because, although we are all human, we all have our own emotions and thoughts and opinions, I kind of felt very small in the face of all this, when you're just a single rifleman out in the middle of Helmand province, surrounded by IEDs, you also feel very small. And so it almost put me back in a childlike state where, I am only able to impact what's in my sector of fire. And what was in my sector of fire was trying to, help people that were trying to get out, link with resources, people who wanted to help and contribute, connect them with the right people, try to give good information in the time frame. But I had to come to that realization that like I really could not do anything. And there were good Afghan soldiers that I served with, legitimate, good soldiers who cared about their country, who risked their life for me and vice versa. And my heart just broke seeing what happened to their country.
Okay, so you guys kind of knew this was coming. Were you guys surprised on how fast it happened?
I'm surprised we left at all.
Yeah,
I agree on that.
It's completely contrary to every other thing we've done in every other war in the history of our nation. Germany seems to be doing pretty well with their maintained presence throughout their growth and a post-World War II vacuum. Japan, Vietnam, Korea. We're constantly putting new bases in Africa. Like, I understand not maintaining combat operations and all that jazz, but like the Middle East as a whole, it's really Southwest Asia, is really just this kind of, I mean, it used to be called Mesopotamia, like the promised land, all these different things. It's rich in minerals, crops, opportunity, and it's just a huge power vacuum. So I honestly never thought we would leave. I thought we would probably leave like a base in Bagram and one in Kandahar. Like, that's realistically what I thought would happen.
Yeah.
Because we've done it. We're still doing it in every other country we've been in.
Except Vietnam. We left Vietnam for a bit.
Yeah.
Like, from an official standpoint,
yeah,
you still had the helicopter coming off the embassy type of thing.
Yeah,
but I get what you're saying. Like, on everything else, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, no.
No, and to his point, we I feel that if the government fell. Sorry, my Marine Corps education forgot how to conjugate English words. If the government fell, then I think we probably would have maintained a presence. But no, to Zach's point, the fact that we pulled forces out of Bagram, and just, from a kind of a big blue arrow perspective, you had different schools of thought of how particularly you could have done things in the specifics. Yeah. But I think as a general consensus, most veterans who have been to Afghanistan, who looked at the information at hand, looked at the actions, I think, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I feel like most of us would have done things differently. I know at least I didn't have any shiny things on my collar, so my opinion's only worth the MRE and the burn pit. But I feel that there's a lot of us who feel that, we shouldn't have removed troops from Bagram, that there wasn't a plan to evacuate anything but the troops and the top level diplomats. And I think that if we had maintained a little bit more of a presence, but then at the same time, I'm conflicted by how many lives and how many taxpayer dollars, America has had air dominance in nearly every conflict it's ever had since World War II. And the Afghan army had air dominance as well. At what point in time do we say enough? How many brothers and sisters do we have to bury? And I don't have a right answer, but yeah. I feel like a lot of veterans are really struggling with those two questions. Should we have stayed or should we have left? And if we were going to leave, many of us don't agree with the way we did it.
Yeah, I think that's one consensus a lot of us have. What helps you in that conflict that you have?
Well, just speaking to veterans in general, like I talk to my buddies all the time. You and I talk, Tanner, all the time. And
yeah,
it just, even when everything was kind of happening, and just reached out to a bunch of my buddies I served with in 2-8 and weapons company. And we're just, our group messages are going off like, hey, you good? Any problems? Like, everybody's just pissed off. And it's just going to be that way. And like, it's funny to talk about the way things kind of are, is like, because I've dealt with a really good chain of command and I've dealt with a really bad chain of command. So it's like, looking at this, it's, in a sense, a bad chain of command, and it just kind of happened. And it sucks. You can't do anything about it because we don't control that aspect of it. We can only control what we do and where we're there on foot. And yeah, so just, I don't know, taking care of each other and talking and speaking about it. And that's one thing a lot of people don't ever really try to talk about. Like with my significant other, Deanna, like we and I chat, and she asked me when all this was happening, she's just like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm just pissed. And she's like, what are you doing? I was like, me and the guys are talking on the phone, or just get on a phone call and just go out in the yard and just kind of like vent to each other and just listen and be there for each other. Because it is one of those things where you don't want to be in vain of what happened there. And a lot of people emotionally, like whether you have the emotional scars, the physical scars, and anybody that's dealt with a bunch of crap over there, it's just like a big letdown of, not betrayal. It's kind of like a betrayal, but more of just some was ripped from you a little bit. I don't know if that comprehends with you guys. I don't know. When it all happened, I was just like, this sucks.
How important was it to reach out to other people?
Yeah, it was super important. And I was really struggling because it had happened. I deployed 10 years ago and no one had reached out. And I told my husband, and he was kind of like, what do you mean? What's going on? And then my friend sent me a message and was like, are you okay? And it kind of was like permission for me to feel all the emotions that I was feeling, because I felt like is this really a big deal? Like, I deployed, it was over 10 years ago, I should be fine, but it's not. And when she reached out, it was kind of a realization that the fact that I'm having these emotions and that someone's caring to ask about me, and the number of people who reached out to see how I was doing, that was so important. And I reached out to other people. And so it kind of was like a ripple effect of like someone reached out to me and then I reached out to someone else, and then it kind of worked its way. And I also am really lucky because I'm going through therapy with Cohen Veterans Network right now. And so it was like the perfect time to be in therapy because I had a therapist to talk to each week as it was all going on. And we were able to work through some of the feelings and the struggles that I was going through.
So from what I'm hearing is like, it's super important to just talk to somebody. Got you. Now, Amanda, you're the only one that's in this group that's not infantry. Your job over there was to build, not destroy. I remember you were telling me that you were building schools for girls, and I imagine you took that in as it was happening, and you probably went on a different journey emotionally than most. Where did you go, and how have you arrived to where you are now?
So at the time I was still, or I guess I'm still connected to one of the interpreters that I was working with when I was over there, and he was trying to get out. And so I think that took the forefront of the emotion in the beginning because I was really concerned about him and his family and if they were going to get out of Afghanistan. And that was probably the biggest challenge. I mean, I was going from day by day connecting with him, and there was a 24-hour period where I lost contact and I thought he had been murdered. And just dealing with those emotions of having to not know what's happening and to feel like it was somehow my fault that Afghans were suffering because they worked with our team while we were over there. And I only connected with him, and there were so many other Afghans that I worked with. And so that was really hard. Luckily, he did get out, and my family decided to donate to an organization in his name, and he was able to get out of Afghanistan. And that has been really helpful because I can say at least one person that I knew, their life has changed. He's in America. We're still connected, and they're starting their life. But there are a lot of other emotions, but that was like the biggest one that I think a lot of people don't realize is there's still connections between the Americans here and some of the Afghans back there. And dealing with that emotion was not something I ever expected to deal with.
Helping him getting to where he's at now, obviously, how did that help you today as far as where you are now?
I think it helped because I did one thing, but I still struggle because I feel like I didn't do enough. You asked that question, do you wish you could have done more? And I'm like, I helped one person, I changed one person's life and their family is safe, but what else could I have done? And really, in reality, we gave everything that month that we could give. And so it's not like we had millions of dollars to help more people. And so there's this like inner struggle of like, did I do enough? And then a reminder, that's the therapy talking of like, I did what I could, and that's what's important, and to stay focused on like what I did. And even for my deployment over there, I did what I was trained to do. Did the mission that I was supposed to do, and then I came home, and that was my job. Extremely
important. Steve, I know you were offered a contract gig to go out there during that entire evacuation. You don't have to say the money, but what was the offer or the mission? And I know, dude, we've talked about it. I know you wanted to go. Like many of us, that offer would have been tempting. But again, you would have to leave everything that you're currently doing to go half a world away to a past part of our lives. What stopped you? Go ahead.
What stopped me was just, Deanna yelling at me. She's like, I'll leave you. I was like, okay, cool. I'm not going.
She straight up said that?
Yeah. I was all right. She probably wouldn't though.
No.
But it was a 10-day op. Money was decent for 10. It was more than what I've been getting paid right now. It would have been more than a single deployment in general. But yeah, it was for 10 days. Everything was given to you gear wise and for you to have your kit and everything. And then it was very tempting. And it was just more tempting too, just to go over and do something about it. Cause again, wanted to go, and I don't know, you feel like you left something on the table. Like I always afforded myself. I always feel like I have more like in the tank of if when I did get out, I wanted to just keep deploying, but that's not the career path you can choose in the military anymore is staying in infantry, and you have to go to a B build eventually. I'm not that type of person. I wanted to fight, but it was very tempting. And like I sent you the text. I was like, hey, check this out. And I'm in the gym as I got it. And then I got home and had the conversation with her at dinner, and man, it was tempting, but if I was to obviously die over there, nobody would know. That was also one of the other things. It's just like, is it worth it? I don't know.
No, Steve makes a great point, because veterans and military kind of have this this proclivity where they feel like they have to carry everything themselves. You know, you're always taught to take initiative. If you see something near you that needs correcting, then you better do so. If someone's fallen out on a hike, you know, you help take some of the weight off, you help carry them, whatever the case is. And so we feel like we have this burden. And I think it really speaks to the community, where we had so many people who really feel like they could have done more, or they wanted to do more. And from a mental health perspective, you have to ask yourself, like, how much would be enough? If you did 25 deployments, would that be enough? Or, you know, would you feel the need to go back for a 26? If you had a whole bunch of disposable income and you donated it all, would you still feel like that was enough? And the answer is really no. You can't pour from an empty vessel. And so you have to be able to take care of yourself and understand where your life lies and the priorities and the things that you need to be as a whole person. And that comes with all things. So I would say that if anyone, you know, takes anything that I have to say on this interview away, it's kind of like Amanda was saying, like, it's okay to give yourself a little bit of a reprieve. You could set your rucksack down. You don't have to carry the burden. We all want to do more, but at the end of the day, you know, even if you do 20 years, most of us would only have been 38 when you retire. You still got a whole life after that. You got people who love you, people who care about you, other things that you can do in your community, in the world. There's so many other ways that you can contribute. And we kind of have this mindset that if you're not boots on the ground, player one, at the ready, grouchoing and pieing, you know, the danger area, that you're somehow not, you know, doing an important enough job. And that's just not the case. You know, grunts would be nothing if it wasn't for the medevacs coming to pick us up, or the EOD, or the support, the logistics, the intelligence, even down to the person who's sewing the stitches in our body armor. And so, you know, whether you were infantry or any other job, like, it's okay to set the rucksack down, because, as I said earlier, like, we're all just each one person. You can't do everything by yourself.
I think it's important to understand too, that, like, while you were in it, while you were there, you gave 100%. You know what I mean? Like, it's a part of your life, and you did the best you could at the time you were there. And that's, you like Dan said, you have the whole rest of your life ahead of you too. So that's good stuff. Now, Dan, you know, I think I talked to you about it. I was feeling a certain way when we shut down operations in Iraq, and when ISIS sprang up, and we had those 300 Marines surrounded on Al Assad Air Base. I know you served in both countries. What was similar in your mind of the pullouts, and what was different in how we pulled out here?
I think that one of the starkest contrasts between the two was the way that we were able to kind of like unite some of the tribalism in Iraq. In 2007, we had I think it was the Sunni Awakening, and you know, you saw kind of from there on, it was a catalyst where people who didn't necessarily cooperate before started to cooperate, and we never really had that spark moment in Afghanistan where, like Zach was saying, people over there were more concerned with, you know, who lived within eyesight. You know, if I can't see your hut from the top of my mountain, then you don't exist to me. And it's kind of really hard to come together, because, like, you look at the sense of American patriotism, you know, like Toby Keith kicks off with another rock anthem and we're all ready to go. And that's just not the case over there. I think there was a lot more cultural identity in Iraq because of how devastating the Iraq and Iran conflict was. You know, between both sides, you had like something like 1 million casualties. Yeah. And so I think that they kind of had a better idea of the gravity of how an outside force can, come in and stuff, but there just never was that real spark moment. And I think that we learned the hard way that no matter how much money you dump into something, that's not what's going to support it. And my heart really breaks for our allies that came from other countries. Like we have our awesome support system. We have all these great, social media platforms and communities and stuff like that for the warfighter. And there's just not that same equivalency in a lot of other countries. And
you hope we learn that lesson.
Yeah, I would hope. And so you have guys and gals from Australia and from Norway and the Netherlands and, all over. And, they went and had life-changing experiences in combat, and then they didn't come home to the same support network that we did.
True.
And so although we have to be able to acknowledge that we have issues going on and that there are feelings and emotions that we need to process through, I would also challenge people, if you made contact with anybody that you served with from a partner nation, like reach out to them too. Like we have Afghan troops that were in the US attending career courses when their government failed. And you kind of think about how surreal that is for them. Like they, like who's signing that individual's paycheck? What unit do they belong to? They're just kind of, a man without a nation, if you will, in every sense of the phrase.
Absolutely. Zach, your website says, be the change you want to see.
Uh-huh.
A lot of humor goes into what you do. I know, and Dan too, but I know I saw a lot of memes that came out around the time of the evacuation. Art of War comes to mind. Mm-hmm. Did humor help you in processing all this? And if so, how so?
For me, I think humor is the starting point for everyone to really have like a more meaningful conversation. I mean, I was taken aback by feelings that I had throughout the entire thing. I mean, a big thing that I did that I don't ever do is there's like these lanes I have in my life. I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a father. I've got this page, and then there's me, and they're all very delineated, or at least I try to think so. Like veteran with a sign is like it goes by warfighter. Like it's not me. That's like my wife would probably say it's me, but that's like me turned all the way up, right?
It's an aspect of you.
Yeah. It's like the gooey version of me, like in Rick and Morty, a more relevant topic, the bad version, the toxic version. And but I have this picture that was me and this young child, this very young girl, and it was when I became a father for the first time, and I was giving her candy, and I saw her all the time on my first deployment. And for the first time ever, actually, I shared something about my personal life. And I was just kind of awestruck by the idea that that's a young, a teenager to a young lady now. And like, I just was thinking about how I didn't know where she was. And like how different it was. Like she's got to be close to the same age as my children. I'm a little bit older. And how weird it is that, like, I mean, for so long, I was very invested in her, like, personal safety and security, because it was this village that was right next to our position. We patrolled all the time. And that just kind of came back in a way I didn't anticipate it. Like, it unearthed some soil that I didn't know existed, is probably the best way to describe it. Like, I was like, oh, I remember that. And so I've always tried to use humor as like a starting point to try and talk about things, because in general, most people don't really like to talk about things that are personal because they're scared of what might happen, what might come out of it. I'm too dumb to know the difference, so I just go in head first. But realistically, my page is just one big therapy session. So
yes, we have to trick people into feeling things with comedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's actually, it's how change. Like if I just tell you not to commit suicide all the time, or talk to your friends, or not to commit suicide, or talk or whatever, that just nobody pays attention to that. But like if I tell you something like I can't back up without a ground guide, that's a nuanced way to talk about how we're different after military service that most everyone can relate to. And so like that's what I'm trying to get you to think about. It's like, oh yeah, I am different. Like, like I still wear shirt stays because they're awesome. Like when I wear a dress shirt,
That's awesome.
I do the same thing.
Yeah, so you look good while you're doing it. So good for you. Your shirt's tucked in, your socks stay up. I mean, get out there. I mean, especially Tanner. Tanner's on there in the beltway, throwing around legislation. Those socks better be high.
I ain't throwing around no legislation. I'm just
you're part of the problem. That's all right. That's all right.
I'm getting paid to bullshit. Okay,
yeah.
That's just what I got to do.
Good for you. Well, you're fitting in just fine. But no, like it's kind of a weird thing though, that my shirt and my socks are attached to each other, and like it's a habit I'm not going to break. My whole outfit's just I had a bunch of shirts when I got out of service, so like there's these little things. Like I feel like humor is the door to emotional honesty. I just made that up, but that's the reality of it. Because
I'm gonna go ahead and copyright that now before you have a chance. No,
it's all right. I got Johnny Cochran's ghost as my lawyer, so we'll be good. So no, but like no one really wants to do hard work as much as they really should, and I try to do that, but it's been hard. Like I didn't think I would care as much as I did. I was full stop not aware that I'd be like, I don't know. That's how it started. Like, and and then, to see it all happening, like you mentioned Iraq, we're still in Iraq. Like we haven't left Iraq. Everyone who had a contract in Afghanistan now has a contract in Iraq. So it couldn't be more different between the two countries. Like,
and not many people know that. Not many people know that.
Like I've called people and they're like, bro, you want an Iraq contract? And money's going up. It's like double right now because Iraq's and like, it's just wild. So I don't know.
Humor opens the door to do the work is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think so.
I dig it. Stephen, Amanda, Dan, Zach, I appreciate all you for coming on. Last question I always ask as we're almost out of time here. Is there anything about this that I didn't ask or I didn't bring up that you think is important to share?
I feel that the question that we need to ask ourselves and our leaders is we have two examples of instances where the American military was called on, and in both instances, they never lost a single major battle in Vietnam nor in Afghanistan. Yet in both instances, we had an unceremonious withdrawal and the government collapse. So we need to ask ourselves and we need to ask our leaders, what are we going to do different next time to make sure that we're not sending our children into a conflict that troops are going to win every battle, but then their leaders are going to lose the war?
Strong.
Yeah, I can't follow that one.
Sure you can.
He can just edit it and put it in front of mine.
I can totally do that.
That sums up a lot, though. It's just, like he said, the ground troops are the ones that are on the ground are doing the fighting. It's the ones that are in the offices are losing the wars, and it's the same here too. Now you look everything on the news and looking at the world of you have people posting things or saying things, and they're just fighting from an armchair. Yeah, literally, if you want to get the experience, go do it. That's my best thing to tell people, and not really a question, but go. If something like this ever happens, I know I'll take that call again. I'm an idiot for it, and just like we were talking before, if it's called upon, I'll go do it. Just like I got that text, but not really a question, it's more of an answer. But you hit it on the head.
Deanna decides to shoot you in the leg or something to make sure you don't go.
No, she knows I'll go.
Amanda, anything?
I just think that we just need to remember what the Americans have done and just to hear our stories. I think if you're still listening to us talk about this, it's just so important what you're doing, what I'm doing with my podcast, and just getting these stories out here, because I love listening to your podcast and hearing all the stories. And I wish more Americans were listening to our stories and hearing about our experience and not just seeing the highlights of what's happening on the news, but like actually hearing the story. Because I think you're talking about humor, but I think story also is really important, because if you hear a personal story of like what happened, it changes your perspective because you actually can understand what it's like to be over there. And I think we just need more stories and more veterans talking about what they experienced so that people will know what happened.
Absolutely. Zach?
I think we stand at a unique time in the history of our nation and in the history of the world We're on the forefront of this precipice of change to where we're just concluding the longest war in the history of ever in the modern era, to where we need to really strive to remember the moment that we are in and the reality that we find now, to where there's literal generations that have been shaped, molded, and been affected by, the events of 9/11 and everything thereafter, so that we can actually look at this, like I said, in an armchair quarterback perspective, but really take a chance to really understand what was done right and what was done wrong, to find a way to avoid humanity's greatest failure, which is war. That is our greatest failure as a species, is that the only way we can settle this is between who lives and who dies. And anything that can be done to avoid that in the future, in the most timely manner possible, I think is what we really need to focus on. It's they're not bad people. People don't join the Taliban because, in my experience, because they really like it. It's because they paid. It was a good job. That was just it. It wasn't, ideological in nature. It was just they pay, bro. That's what it translated to me once as. And I always think about that if I was over there, I'd probably be a Taliban. So definitely all you guys and gals, we'd all be over there doing a podcast for Al Jazeera. But
a paddle boat and an RPG is a pretty enticing reenlistment bonus.
I mean, yeah. What if somebody told you they give you a sheet metal from a Russian tank? What would you do? So, no, I think we just really need to stop dehumanizing and really remember that they're just people trying to make their way through the world. Yeah. So,
here. Well, man, you said you appreciate me for telling the stories. I appreciate all you guys for living the stories that I've been able to tell. And Amanda and Dan, you guys tell stories on your podcast too. So I definitely appreciate all of you. Appreciate all for coming out. Till next time, guys, we are out. Later.
Bye.
We gotta get them one way or the other. Machine gunner, firefight, bullets fly, day and night rain. Simplify, do or die, another campaign. My desk is a rock where the drug lords cut up millions. My pen is a 7.62 round that'll cut them down in an instant. Point, click, pull the trigger to the tune of falling brass. Full benefits and a purple heart and a Russian-made bullet in my bag. Raining down lead, punching that clock. Get 'em boys, I'm laying down cover. Machine gunner, firefight, bullets fly, day and night rain. Simplify, do or die, another campaign. Here we go, lock and load, 0331. Lug 1,000 rounds, and I ain't bringing back one.